Welcome to New York City Visions. I'm your host, Herb Malsman. We are sitting in Robert Emmett's Bar and Restaurant right now. I am about to introduce our guest. We were going to do it in John's Pizzeria, and I'm used to Brooklyn Pizzeria. You go in there, you sit out, you have your little slice, the whole deal. You can't get a slice at John's Pizzeria on 8th Avenue between Broadway and 8th on 44th Street, and the place was packed.
Yeah,
I mean, those places was packed. Pizzerias, to me, growing up, was little pizzerias. Our guest is Amber Jones, and Amber is sort of like an aroma. There's an aroma to Amber's.
That's a good one.
Isn't Amber kind of like they find fossils in the amber?
Yeah, it's like hardened tree sap.
Right, so there's an aroma to...
I haven't smelled that aroma, but I hope it's nice.
Amber is beautiful. It's a great aroma. We're with Amber Jones, and Amber Jones has written a book, New York, Phew, and we're meeting first. Hi, Amber.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good. So, Amber Jones, and I'm going to tell you a little story first. We're taping today on August 24th. 24th? Mm-hmm. 2011. Something happened in New York City yesterday that doesn't happen very often at all. Rumbling through out of Virginia, as they all do, out of Virginia was a 5.9 earthquake that hit the city yesterday. And I'm looking out the window as New York City just doesn't stop. Everybody's back, and I'm looking at tourist buses, and I'm going, those folks came in to visit New York City, and what happens while they're there? An earthquake hits. And it must be a great event to take home with.
Well, most people just thought it was the train, like the subway rumble underneath them. They never would think that it was an earthquake.
Right. Now, do you have an earthquake story from yesterday too?
I was just sitting at my desk, and my chair started to shake. And then I looked at my colleague, who seemed fine, and then it stopped, and then it started to shake again, and I just thought I was having like a dizzy spell or something.
Right, and so that was so that's what happened. And so there any damage,
Oh, no, not at all. No one even knew what happened.
No one knew what happened. For me, I'm staying in Brooklyn for 3 months, and folks, if you listen to this program, I'm back in the house where I cat sat this past April, but the family is home, so I'm not cat sitting. But I was inside microwaving some chicken in the kitchen, and I guess it was around 157 maybe, 158, like that. And I did my microwave chicken. I was coming out, walking towards the living room and into my bedroom area, and my host, he's sitting there, he's standing there, his eyes wide open, and he's saying to me, "Herb, are you okay?" And I said, "Okay, about what?" He says, "The earthquake, we shook." Well, in the living room, the floor shook, and the CDs rattled, and things were like, and the couch was moving, and in the kitchen, there was nothing.
That's crazy.
Nothing. I mean, there was nothing. I was so surprised when I came out to the living room and he said, "We just had an earthquake." I said, "Earthquake? What are you talking about?" So now I was listening to a rock DJ on 104.3. And he was saying that us folks are going to have tremor envy. Have you heard of tremor envy? I mean, I do feel... Let's move on now. So, Phew. New York. How do you pronounce Phew? Is that it?
Well, I mean, it's New York, Phew, York, New York, Phew, York. I mean, it's phonetically, it's correct. It's the tomato, so it doesn't really matter which way it's pronounced. It basically means the same thing as...
But isn't when you wipe your brow, you go, "Phew, phew"?
Yeah, well, Phew is like, kind of more stinky a smell, but you could also be like, walk by something smelly and just be like, "Phew,"
Yeah. Well, New York had a bit of a Phew yesterday. Are there any aromas that go along with earthquakes? I mean, anything that's...
maybe just anything that's spilled, maybe.
So that's what happened. Talk about your book, and then I want to ask you about the campaign. It was a fundraiser for the book. First, explain the book. Introduce my listeners to the book.
Okay, yeah, it's called New York, Phew York. It's a scratch and sniff guide through New York City. It's a story of a family that comes to New York on a family vacation. They befriend their hotel concierge, and the concierge tells them all the different neighborhoods to go into. So they go into over 19 different neighborhoods in Manhattan, and they encounter over 20 different smells of New York, both good and bad. So there is everything from pizza and cheesecake and hot dogs and the smells that we love to the garbage garbage, the horse manure, the sewer steam, and the smells that we don't love so much, but are synonymous with living in the city.
What was the criteria when you came up? Now, I believe you have 19 smells on 20 pages, and it's a scratch and sniff sort of. What did you have to leave out? Why did you pick 19 smells?
Well, actually, it was really just more cost effective. I mean, originally we had 30 smells, but there's certain things that we took out that weren't necessarily New York smells. You know, kind of like when when they go to the perfume corner and the smell of perfume, we're debating whether or not we should keep that. When the concierge is marking on the map the smell of the highlighter, we didn't know if we needed that. You know, because those aren't really like New York smells, so we just really wanted to stick with the city smells as opposed to like all the little intricate smells that everyone encounters on a daily basis. And again, they're costly because they're custom made, so it's just an expensive process.
Okay, so we were going to meet in John's Pizzeria. Is that one of your favorite stops? I mean, because we were supposed to meet there a few weeks ago.
I know.
A couple of weeks ago, and you called me. We were going to meet on the 7th or the 8th, and I lost a day somewhere. And you called and you told me you were already seated, which I thought was a strange thing anyway for pizzeria. Don't you just walk in there and grab your
Oh, yeah, Manhattan's a little different.
I should have known it was kind of upscale there. And I was shocked by the fact that it's tomorrow, and you don't know it today, so we are together. Is John's Pizzeria, is that a favorite stop? Or what made pizzeria? Well, pizzeria, of course, pizza.
Well, I mean, I'm a concierge here in the Times Square area, so I'm very well versed on the great restaurants here in the Midtown area. And John Pizzeria is definitely one of my favorite pizzerias here in Midtown. It's a beautiful space. It's in an old cathedral. It's got a pencil sketching of New York on the wall. The pizza's wonderful. It's written up, one of the top 5 restaurants every year for pizza.
So here's where you come
to
lunch.
It's a favorite.
How does scratch and sniff come about? I mean, what's the process, if it isn't a secret, what is the process putting that smell to the page and scratch? Run us through this and how it came about. Well, you already mentioned how it made you decide to do it, but what is the process in the scratch and smell? What's the technique?
Well, the printing process is a little bit more detailed than a regular, print color illustrated book. The smells are actually encapsulated, have to be included within the ink. And there's a couple different processes for scratch and sniff, but the one that we went with is the small encapsulation. So every time you scratch it, there's little, the little encapsulations pop to release the smell.
And that's what you have.
Yes.
How long will the smell last? I mean, eventually, does the book
It actually
get old?
does. It does last for years.
Really?
I mean, of course, depending on how much you scratch, I guess, or how long your fingernail is. I don't know.
The most fun you can have scratching.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so now you went out. Now, do you know So you know how it goes on there, but like the pizza smell, how does that? That's what I'm a little curious. How does that?
How do they match it? It's a chemist. It's a chemist that kind of matches the smells. It's the same process of trying to get a jelly bean to taste exactly like lime or pineapple. So it's basically a chemist that kind of creates the ingredients necessary to make the proper encapsulations for it to smell like that.
So you went to a scientist. You yourself personally went to a scientist.
I'm a scientist. I'm just kidding.
You're a scientist. Oh yeah, what do you? Well, it smells. Okay, so you went to the scientist, or you ever went to the scientist? Did you go to the scientist?
No, I didn't go to a scientist. I actually went through a print company that actually deals with a scratch and sniff company that basically, some of them have an inventory of smells, and then custom smells can be made. There's a lot of smells that are in an inventory typically, which is lavender and those kinds of things. Because there's so many catalogs now that if you wanted to, say, buy a candle, you can actually scratch and sniff the different candles before you actually make a purchase. So it's a really popular thing now, and it's definitely coming back because I think it wasn't available for a long time.
So the guy opens a drawer, whoever the scientist is, opens a drawer, and that's pizza, so you slap that on there.
Right, exactly. He just goes and buys a pie and rubs it in the page.
Is that the way it is?
I wish. Otherwise, I'd really make the book by myself.
Wow. When did you decide to write this book, and why did you already mention? How this came to you to do this? I mean, was it something you wanted to do? Because everybody says, I want to write a book, but hardly
actually walking home with one of my friends. I just got out of work. It was very late, and I was smelling the pizza from the corner store, and I was like, oh, that pizza smells so good. And then right as I was saying that, I was stepping in horse manure. So my friend was like, watch out. So I realized I was stepping in horse manure. I went to the corner to make sure nothing was on my shoe, and I was engulfed in shish kebab smoke. And I was like, this city needs a scratch and sniff book. It is like every corner, every step, there's a new smell. So that's kind of how it came about, and then I just decided to write it.
So you're passing the pizzeria, you stepped in horse manure, and you wound up in the midst of a misty shish kebab smoke, and that's how it came to you.
That is correct. Yep. So I just started working on small, little, easy-to-read couplets because I wanted it to be a fun book for both adults and for children. You know, I want it to be kind of more stylized, that it was more of a coffee table book and not just some, like, you know, quick flip-through children's book. Yeah.
A coffee table, the smell of coffee. Do you have
Exactly.
the smell of coffee?
I sure do. I mean, coffee is synonymous with New York, so I definitely have that in there.
Decaf, regular, Colombian, or Arabic? What did you go with?
I definitely did kind of your classic cup of coffee.
Classic cup
Yeah.
of coffee. Okay. Okay. Talking about there's some sort of a fundraising thing was happening. I've been following you on Facebook. You're on Facebook,
Yeah.
aren't we all?
Thanks
And
for
there
calling.
was you were raising money, and explain that and how that factors in.
Because the printing was so expensive, a lot of publishing companies weren't necessarily interested in the process. Some of the publishing companies that were interested were, of course, they buy your rights from you, so they wanted to manipulate the book in many ways, like have their own illustrator, have only 8 smells instead of 20, wanted to have only good smells, not bad smells. And, you know, this is just my small little project, and I really wanted to keep all the creative aspects that I had originally created for it. So I decided to go a non-traditional way and do the self-publishing route, which of course is still very expensive, but it kept me completely involved creatively. So I decided to go on this really great website called Kickstarter. Kickstarter is it's a website, and it's a platform for artists to get their projects funded. So it's definitely for any creative projects that people have. And you go on there and you submit it to them, they approve it, and then you go on for anywhere from 30 to 90 days to raise money for your project. They say that 30 days is the most is the way that most projects get funded successfully, within 30 days. So I decided, okay, I'm going to go for 30 days. I mean, $20,000 is a lot of money to ask for.